When will she learn that she just needs to go and stand and smile and avoid this awkwardness in front of banks of cameras?
Meghan Markle has an extreme case of main character syndrome, basically a situation where somebody thinks they are the main player, the protagonist in the story of their lives and the lives of everyone around them.
Harry's awkward smile really said it all. It's like he's looking very unhappy. Look at that. Then he realizes, oh gosh, she is recording me again. I better smile.
90 seconds. That is roughly how long Meghan Markle lasted on that carpet before a 76-year-old man seemed to look straight past her, walked by her outstretched hand, and left her standing there with a smile that suddenly had nowhere to go. She had arrived ready to take charge of the evening. Within moments of stepping out of the car, she was reportedly telling the host of a charity gala where to stand, creating an awkward scene before the night had even properly started.
David Foster and Catherine McPhee in Canada for their charity gala was not surprisingly a complete mess for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Meghan, look at this. She just can't help directing traffic on a red carpet, can she? When a picture tells the real story, the Fosters cannot stand Meghan and Harry.
A man with 16 Grammys, 4 decades of red carpet experience, and his own name attached to the building was not about to be pushed around. He moved like someone who knew exactly where he belonged, ignoring the attempted greeting and heading straight to his position. No big reaction, no obvious warmth, and barely a moment of attention. He simply kept moving and carried on with the final night of his life's work, as though the interaction meant nothing to him. Then came that split second afterward.
You just get the sense of Meghan Markle just tries to do whatever she can to bring attention to herself and act like it's just so casual, but she's still attempting to do it. She also is still attempting to direct people because, again, this is a film production of her life, guys. So she needs to direct people as to where to stand because apparently a producer who is in his 70s and has been in the entertainment industry for years and years, he apparently doesn't know how to stand on the red carpet. He needs Meghan Markle to direct him because she's the ultimate director.
Watch her expression. That tiny moment is what sent people online into a frenzy, because suddenly the confident entrance looked a lot more awkward. In front of a packed room where guests had reportedly paid $5,000 a seat, someone appeared completely unwilling to play along with the moment, leaving Meghan standing there with an uncertain smile and nowhere obvious to put her hands. And that is the version the wires ran. But here is the version people inside the room actually saw. Victoria, British Columbia, Friday night. Purple carpet, black tie, $5,000 a seat, and $20,000 if you wanted the full weekend.
Meghan Markle chose to do the unthinkable on the red carpet. When I tell you that this woman loves to burn bridges because she had nothing to lose. She knows she's not coming back because David Foster is not doing these events anymore. This is the 40th year he's done this.
40 years of one man's charity work supporting families whose children were waiting for transplants, his hometown, his final gala, and a completely sold-out night. Everyone who had paid was already inside when 2 unannounced guests suddenly appeared on the carpet. Of course they did. When have those 2 ever walked into a room that was already focused somewhere else? And here is the part that raised eyebrows, even if the mainstream coverage did not dwell on it. According to the footage and online commentary, she seemed less like a regular guest and more like someone trying to shape the moment herself.
She has been for the last 10 years. And unfortunately, performances like this are becoming more and more grating on the public day after day. And Meghan Markle would be so much better served to not wear a toga that looks like she has a dirty diaper and instead actually embrace her vain, vapid, and shallowness.
Within minutes, she was helping arrange people for photographs, filming herself walking through a corridor of musicians, pulling Harry into the shot, laughing toward the camera, and lingering around the photo line. Normally, a guest arrives, supports the cause, takes a few pictures, and moves along. But the footage gave viewers a very different impression. It looked like she was searching for moments to capture, while the man whose name was attached to the foundation was waiting for his own night to take center stage.
I have to be honest, the imagery that Meghan chose to put out, I don't think she realizes that we just totally see through her act now. This with the sexy bagpipe troupe.
I love bagpipes.
This is great. So we're mine.
There was also online speculation that she had asked to have the carpet to herself. That claim has not been established as fact, but it added another layer to the chatter. Because almost every clip from the evening seemed to show someone determined to control the moment, whether that was actually the intention or simply how the footage came across. Then came the clip that sent people online into overdrive. She walks through a corridor lined with pipers and drummers, grown men in formal dress who have performed for major public figures, and she moves along the line laughing. That laugh became a talking point too. Some viewers thought it sounded delayed or overly rehearsed, while others saw nothing unusual at all. Then she turns toward the room and says that her husband loves bagpipes. Harry is standing just a couple of feet away, right there in the frame. He could easily have said it himself.
My husband loves bagpipes. And you gotta wonder, who is this poor soul forced to carry this camera and film her giggling at herself, her horrible hairstyle here, and her dirty diaper toga? Who is in charge of filming this? Every time Meghan laughs, I just can't help but think of a really bad actress attempting to laugh.
And that is what made the moment stand out. Harry has the Scottish connection, the Balmoral history, and the military ties. Yet somehow, she was the one explaining his connection to the room. And she takes a sentence away from him and delivers it herself, speaking about her husband in the third person to a room full of strangers. It comes across almost like someone narrating a movie about her own life, with everyone else reduced to background scenery. And then you notice something else. Someone is actually walking backward down that corridor to film the moment. A real person doing a job, walking backward with a camera just to capture the laugh and the interaction. That detail sparked plenty of criticism, because this is the same couple who have repeatedly spoken about privacy and unwanted attention from the press.
Laughing authentically is harder than crying. And I kind of believe that in a way, because you can definitely look fake laughing. Crying might be a little bit easier to pull off because you just have to bring the emotion. But laughter is a bit hard, and Meghan looks like she's acting badly.
After years of legal battles and public arguments over intrusion, seeing a staff member filming their movements from the car to the event became an easy target for online critics. The contrast practically writes itself. Then Harry starts speaking to the pipers himself. He looks genuinely interested, turns toward them, and has an actual conversation. Meanwhile, she remains just behind his shoulder, still inside the camera frame, waiting for the attention to shift back toward her. Viewers immediately began reading into her expression, with some interpreting it as frustration and imagining the thought, "Why isn't this about me?" Inside the gala, the situation became even more noticeable. There is one thing that can make any public figure uncomfortable: a room that suddenly stops paying attention to them.
And even went out of her way to wear a Canadian designer for her gown. And they're very much trying to, again, he's trying to do that buddy-buddy thing with the bagpipers. They're just very much trying to emulate this life that they left. And everything looks increasingly strained because they look ridiculous.
When Adam Levine gets up to perform, Meghan stands and starts dancing. The problem? This was not a dance floor. It was a seated black-tie dinner with people directly behind her trying to see the stage. Those guests had reportedly paid thousands for their seats and were there to watch the performance, not stare at the back of someone's head. Then came the little dance moves, the hand clapping and the quick looks around to see who was watching, and Harry's expression became another major talking point. Viewers focused heavily on his reaction, with many claiming he looked uncomfortable and wanted the moment to end. Online comments quickly repeated the same three-word interpretation. He told her to sit down. Whether that is actually what happened is unclear. But the clips certainly gave the internet plenty to argue about. And there was even more footage from the table. In several clips, she appears to lean toward Harry repeatedly, seemingly encouraging him to stand up and join her. But for once, he stays exactly where he is. He does not move.
They're acting ridiculous. They left. They chose to leave. And there are perfectly legitimate ways for them to have somewhat of a public profile, but not constantly looking like they're trying to recreate what they lost. But they can't do it.
That detail became one of the biggest talking points of the night. Think about how unusual that looked to viewers. Some interpreted it as Harry choosing not to get involved, even if it meant looking awkward in front of a room full of donors. Instead of standing up and joining the moment, he remained seated while she continued dancing.
How tacky. Not bidding for the gala, not helping towards fundraising, but filming your place sittings for social media content. I swear she's mentally stuck at the age of 12, just like Harry. And I mean, I felt this, look at this, when she was awkwardly dancing and actually hollering during an Adam Levine performance, just making sure everyone's actually watching her. But no one was watching her.
Online critics quickly turned that into a much bigger story, claiming this was the moment he finally drew a line. Now, back to the carpet and those 90 seconds. The pair had already received their share of attention. The cameras had captured their arrival, the outfit had been photographed, and everyone knew they were there. Normally, that is when guests move along and allow the hosts to step forward for their own photographs. But according to the footage, they remained in position. The host and his wife eventually had to step into the scene alongside them, rather than getting a completely clear shot. And that is why some viewers felt the moment became uncomfortable. This was the host's own gala, marking 4 decades of his charity work, and people expected the spotlight to move toward him. Then came the arm gesture. It extends outward, slightly across and down, appearing to indicate a particular spot on the carpet. It was not an obvious wave, and it was not a handshake. Some viewers immediately recognized the gesture as something you might see from an event coordinator directing someone where to stand. That is what made the clip so striking. Instead of simply posing, she appeared to be directing the positioning of the shot. Whether that was actually her intention or simply how the footage looked is impossible to know from the clip alone, but the optics were enough to trigger a storm of online commentary. Then the host walked straight past the gesture. No obvious greeting, no long pause, and no dramatic exchange. He simply continued to his position, leaving viewers to debate what his expression meant. Some saw anger, others saw concentration, and plenty of people online decided it was fury. But whatever was happening privately, the camera captured a remarkably awkward few seconds. And then she starts fiddling with her dress.
Foster and Catherine knew that they invited Harry and Meghan, they would get more headlines, and that's what they wanted, and that's what they got, and that's all they cared about. Harry and Meghan have nothing to offer except for that royal piece, and they exploit it quite a bit, but it has a limited bandwidth, and they're just there for kind of the shock value. They're not really there because anybody actually them there. And the performance with the bagpipers is just the worst example of that.
That is the moment viewers noticed. Watch her hands. The second the scene seemed to stop going according to plan, her hands moved straight toward the fabric. Critics immediately compared it with another public moment involving William and a scarf, where some viewers felt he appeared more interested in adjusting his clothing than engaging with Meghan. That comparison quickly became part of the online conversation. Different men, different events, different countries, yet viewers claimed they were seeing a similar reaction, simply stepping away from an uncomfortable interaction. But here is the detail that makes this story even more interesting. That arm gesture has appeared in earlier footage too. 2 years earlier in Florida, at a polo event connected to Harry's charity Centerbell, a similar moment became the subject of intense online debate. The charity was established by Harry and the Prince of Lesotho in memory of their mothers and supports work involving children affected by HIV. During a trophy presentation, Harry was standing beside Dr. Sophie Chandoka, the charity's then chairwoman, who was born in Harare, worked as a corporate finance lawyer and received an MBE during the late Queen's honours. Then Meghan arrived, and viewers noticed the arm gesture again.
Sussexes only will talk to people who repeat their own narrative.
Yes.
And who they can control. So the idea that you could get the truth from the Sussexes is contradiction.
In the footage, she appears to indicate where she wants the chairwoman to move, rather than remaining beside Harry. The chairwoman then moves around the trophy and takes another position in front of the assembled donors. The clip sparked plenty of criticism because it appeared to some viewers that a guest was directing the chairwoman of the organisation. Then the story took another turn. According to reports surrounding the dispute, there were attempts to manage the public response to the footage, including a request for a statement defending Meghan. Chandoka reportedly rejected the idea, saying she did not want to establish a precedent where the charity became an extension of the Sussexes' public relations operation. Accounts of what happened next differ, and the reported private messages have never been independently established in full. Some people who claimed knowledge of the situation described the exchange in harsh terms, portraying it as tense and uncomfortable. Those allegations became part of a much larger dispute surrounding the charity.
Markle, as usual, is asking for insane demands. And again, she made it all about herself. But she doesn't care, does she? What else can we expect from Meghan Markle? You will see that the body language is brutal. There is no eye contact whatsoever.
Months later, Centre Ballet faced serious internal turmoil, including the departure of trustees and the loss of its royal patrons. Chandoka publicly raised allegations concerning the organization's treatment and governance, while the wider dispute eventually reached the courts. Those events are documented separately from the viral clips, but they added another layer to the controversy. And that raises the bigger question: why did Meghan continue appearing at charity events connected to other people's causes? Commentator Tom Bauer has offered his own explanation in his books and reporting, including figures concerning money raised for Centre Ballet during its early years. But those numbers and his interpretation remain part of a contested public debate, rather than proof of what motivated Meghan personally. Concerts, documentaries, a late princess's name appearing on invitations, and emotional appeals about children in southern Africa living with HIV. According to figures cited by Tom Bauer, about £84,000 from £1.15 million raised during Centre Ballet's early years reached programmes supporting those children. I checked the percentage twice because the number sounds shocking at first glance.
And Harry, of course, knew that he messed up, that he should have moved along. But did he? No, because he's a coward. He's a coward, and he knows that people will always forgive him, especially now after he met with the king.
That works out to roughly 7%. But the figures and what they represent deserve careful context, because money raised by a charity does not always translate directly into immediate payments to beneficiaries. Bauer also criticised how other funds were spent, including expenses connected to senior staff and their families. He argued that substantial amounts went toward administration and living costs rather than directly supporting children. Those claims have been heavily debated, and the financial picture is more complicated than a single percentage can show. His account of the years that followed is even more damaging. Bauer argues that Harry largely stopped visiting the region for several years, despite remaining closely associated with the charity's public image. In Bauer's telling, the explanation was blunt. Meghan didn't like Africa. That is his characterization, not an established fact, but it became one of the most controversial claims in his account. Bauer also portrays Harry as increasingly disconnected from the work, suggesting that the public appearances, polo events, and fundraising obligations became less appealing. When Chandoka attempted to address problems within the organization, Bauer argues that Harry's response contributed to the conflict rather than resolving it. His harshest conclusion is this: Harry is more interested in his reputation than in the people who are supposed to be the beneficiaries of his charity. Bauer identifies the African communities the charity was created to support as the people who envious.
In some ways, he does despise his wife. I mean, we saw that on the recent Middle Eastern tour when he was constantly rejecting her attempt at public displays of affection because he knows that what she's doing is like ownership. It's not about love. It's not about affection. It's about ownership, and it's about showing the world who is in control. And he can't stand that.
Ultimately suffered from the dispute. Again, that is Bauer's judgment, not an established fact. He is equally critical of the Sussexes' own foundation, arguing that it operates more like a commercial organisation than a traditional large-scale charity. He contrasts its reported giving with the enormous sums donated by some of America's wealthiest philanthropists. His point is deliberately provocative. The numbers, he argues, do not match the scale of the public image. And then there is the woman whose name keeps appearing throughout the story, Diana. Whatever people thought of her, even her critics generally recognized that she understood the power of personal contact. Bauer's own summary acknowledges her enormous status, her beauty, her poise, and the effort she put into royal duties. Most importantly, he credits her with genuine empathy towards sick and vulnerable people, something he says she demonstrated repeatedly through direct contact and years of public work. Hospices, hospitals, and AIDS wards in 1987, at a time when parts of the public still believed the disease could be spread through ordinary contact. Diana took off her gloves, held the hand of a dying man, and did it in front of cameras. That image became hugely influential because it challenged fear with simple human contact. That is what genuine public service can look like when someone is willing to show up and face the uncomfortable reality. Now consider Bauer's criticism of Diana's daughter-in-law, who has spent years wearing pieces of Diana's jewelry in public. Bauer argues that Meghan would never spend day after day visiting hospices, hospitals, or communities living in poverty. Instead, he portrays her as someone more interested in glamorous social events and celebrity circles. His comparison is intentionally brutal. One woman became known for sitting with sick people, while the other has been accused by critics of focusing more heavily on high-profile appearances. That contrast is the heart of Bauer's argument. Diana's humanitarian image was built through repeated, visible contact with vulnerable people. Meghan, in his view, has borrowed elements of that image through jewelry and public references to Diana without reproducing the same kind of hands-on work. Whether that comparison is fair is another question, but it makes for a powerful controversy. And that brings us to why the pair appeared in Victoria in the first place. Critics argue that the invitations are no longer arriving at the level they once expected. The biggest celebrity events are harder to access, major award show appearances have become less common, and the Hollywood attention surrounding them has clearly changed. Bauer was asked where he believed the couple were heading, and he gave a brutally negative assessment, describing their situation in terms of desperation and failure. He argued that they had run out of ideas and suggested their finances were under pressure. He even predicted they could eventually seek a closer relationship with the royal family in Britain, hoping for renewed access and support. His assessment of Meghan was even harsher. Bauer has argued that her major media opportunities have dried up, pointing to the end of major Netflix projects and the lack of a breakout podcast or other large commercial success. His conclusion was blunt. He could not see a clear next move for her. That is Bauer's opinion, not a proven prediction. But it explains why the Victoria appearance has become such a talking point. When the biggest rooms stop calling, even a smaller invitation can suddenly become very important. So, a Canadian charity gala on an island most of Hollywood could barely place on a map gets a yes. Of course it does. There is also a claim circulating in Canada that the foundation covered the couple's travel and hotel costs. That remains unverified, so it should be treated as a rumour. But here is what is confirmed. After the event, questions were raised about whether they personally paid for their $5,000 seats, bid on any auction items, or made a donation of their own. Those questions were not widely addressed in the coverage. Make of that what you will. Then Saturday arrived, and the contrast became impossible to miss. A second event was free and open to local families, with thousands gathering at the harbour for drones and fireworks celebrating decades of charitable work. No carpet, no staged entrance, and no major photo opportunity. There was no visible appearance from the couple at that public celebration. Yet the weekend was happening while British Columbia was dealing with devastating wildfires, with more than 20,000 people reportedly forced from their homes. Critics immediately asked why neither had publicly acknowledged the crisis. So what did their weekend produce online? A selfie, a video featuring dessert, and a few light-hearted moments posted to millions of followers with a Canadian flag and red heart. There was little mention of the charity, the families it supports, or the money reportedly raised. And then social media users noticed another detail that became almost comical. Her own brand account had apparently liked the picture. That tiny interaction quickly became part of the wider online mockery surrounding the post. Her own company liking her picture on her own page. You really could not make this stuff up. It became one more tiny detail for critics to obsess over, because the whole post suddenly looked less like a message to an audience and more like a carefully managed image. So tell me in the comments, what would you have done if someone tried directing you on your own charity night after 40 years of work? Would you have played along or simply kept moving? If you want more of the details that often get overlooked, hit like and subscribe, and drop your take in the comments, because there is plenty more to unpack. She walked onto that carpet looking ready to control the moment. 90 seconds later, the spotlight had shifted. The host had moved past her, and she was left adjusting her dress while cameras captured every awkward second. She appeared to come in ready to direct the scene, but the room did not necessarily follow her lead, and the most talked about footage came from the staff member filming the moment for her,